So
yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So, yeah.
I don't know if someone said this to me or if it's just, and I remember thinking this a lot when I left my last position at the Human Relations Commission in North Carolina, was like, I might plant seeds of trees that I might not ever sit under. I may not ever actually eat the fruit. I may come back later and enjoy the shade of the tree, but I might not actually, I'm not planting it to sit under it, right? I'm planting it so that others can come just tomorrow, and run it and take it and fly with it and go get it, right?
That's good. That's really good.
Versus it just being like tied to like
immediate like gratification.
Well, right, or to your own gratification, or to your own ego, or to, I don't believe that we can do anything by ourselves.
The More Movement Crew.
Welcome to the More Movement Crew podcast. I'm your host, Kenina Porter, and this is episode 7. So welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Before we get started, I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel by clicking the red button below, and you can get access to all of the episodes that we have and all the cool stuff we got going on. So thank you for tuning in to another episode. And today we have a special guest that I'm so excited for you guys to meet and to hear everything that she's got going on. But before we get started with the interview, you guys already know we play a game called 5 Questions. So, you ready for this game?
I'm ready.
All right, cool. So, the first question is, name 3 words that describe you.
Okay, let's see. Passionate, colorful, and Gosh, long pause there, huh?
You thinking.
I'm thinking.
One more.
Pensive?
That's a good one. It's a good one. Now, you were quick with the passionate and colorful, which is true. But you were really quick with the passionate and colorful, which is, anybody who knows you knows that that's true. All right, so second question. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would that meal be?
First thing that comes to mind maybe is like carne asada.
Really?
Carne asada with like a chimichurri sauce.
For the rest of your life?
But yeah, then I'm thinking that that's like, probably hard on the belly to eat that like the rest of your life.
Right.
I love vegetables. Probably roasted root vegetables.
That sounds good. Carne asada. You said carnitas?
Carne asada.
Carne asada. Oh, carne asada is so good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. On everything. Fries, everything.
All
right. Question number 3. Your favorite childhood song. Like, it could have been something that you played when you were a teenager, something you used to sing. Like, what is your favorite childhood song? Like, old school, anything.
Wow.
They make you think, don't they?
It does make me think a little. I think, gosh, I really like Debbie Gibson.
Really? What's the song that she sang?
Look, I can't. That's why I got caught up because I'm like, what was her song?
What's the main pop? I can't remember it now. I remember Debbie.
I used to sing it all the time too, or Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Oh,
I sang that a lot.
That's a good one.
I was a singer and an actress or whatever when I was a kid. Got into
that's like kind of Broadway
performing arts.
Yeah, Broadway-ish. I didn't know what you were gonna say. You just never know. Like,
should I be ashamed? I like Debbie Gibson.
No. Like, I just wish I would have remembered the song because I was gonna start singing it.
Right.
But yeah, I remember that. Look, I might put it down in the description.
I think you should. Yeah, or play it as the intro song.
Yeah. So the next question kind of goes with that question is, okay, so you have your favorite childhood song, but what was like your favorite like old school childhood like fashion? Like what did you wear? Like, what was the look? Everybody has like that look.
Well, there was in style for a little bit were MC Hammer pants, and I did wear MC Hammer pants.
Yeah, I think I had one pair.
I had one pair. And then I think, there was a while, the tight skirts, little mini skirts, black. Mm-hmm. What do they call them? Was there a name for?
Like, they're kind of like tube. Well,
like tube, yeah. I want to say like a tube, yeah.
Really? I thought you were going to say like the off-the-shoulder Debbie Gibson, like, side pony.
Mm-hmm.
Side ponies. Like, yeah. That was all a part of it. Like, that was the look then back in the day.
Yeah.
So.
That's funny.
I just thought that was a good question to ask people. Because you just never know what you're going to get. And then the fifth question is, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think that if, I had a mentor ask me this, that's like, if you were at your retirement party and they were like, remembering you for things, what would be the thing that would be said about you? Mm-hmm. And I think that it probably has to do with just, changing hearts and minds and lives of young people.
That's beautiful. I like it. So that was the game 5 questions. And so now we have gotten through the 5 questions game, and now we get to the actual meat of the episode, and that is you. So I like to give you guys just a little context as to how I know Sarah. Her and I, we work together in similar circles. We have worked together with the organization that I'm a part of, and we connected like what last year maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
And started to work together, and we started to realize that we were passionate about some of the same things. And she said she's passionate about young people, so am I. And so we really realized that both of our ideas can come together, and we can really work to make an impact for kids of color, for African American students, for Latinx students. And so we have developed a friendship through that, and it continues to thrive, it continues to grow, and I have so much respect and passion for the work that she's done, and I'm just grateful that you came on my podcast.
Thanks, and I admire you a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, when you came, we were meeting for coffee one day, and you sat down with me, and you were like, man, I've developed this like framework for like how to do the work and the areas of focus that we need to be sure that we're focusing on when working with African American students. And I was like, right, I developed this framework too. Yeah. Let's compare notes. And so I think there's this like-mindedness.
It is
that we carry.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I actually forgot about that one point, but I remember. I think we were having the conversation about it, and I was like hesitant to tell you about what I had developed, because I was like, well, I don't know how good it is. We had this conversation about me second guessing, and you were just like, yeah, really? Let's sit down. Let's compare notes. And so that just made me feel so much more comfortable with my idea, and like that I was like really on like the right track. Like, kind of confirmed things for me.
Right. And then I was telling you should go to study and get your PhD so that you could develop out some of those concepts more and maybe have, a little study or something, a research project or, something around that. But, you don't have to have that, right? You don't have to have the PhD to actually do good work. But
you're not the only person that's kind of hinted to that. So
yeah, when your mind thinks in that both creative and can show models and bring like theory and action together, right, which is praxis, like when you can actually do the work based on what we've both learned and how we've experienced it on the ground in community.
Yeah,
it's just your educational experience is just so much different when you can bring those things together.
It is. And I think even with the doctoral program, it helps you to kind of take things to like the next level and for you to really dive in to the research. And that's the part that I'm starting to really develop a love for, is diving into like the research and looking at what really, really like helps students learn, right? What helps students connect to what they're learning in school. And how do we really change the system to be able to support those students?
Yeah.
But before we dive into this, right, we forgot. I want you to introduce yourself officially, but and then tell us just a little bit about like who you are, where you're from. Give us that.
Great. So happy to be here. Thanks again for having me. And so I am Sarah Nunez. I came to Louisville about 5 years ago from Asheville, North Carolina, and moved here to take a position at the University of Louisville, running in the Cultural Center, helping to build and run programs for Latino students. And I've done that for the past 5 years, and I'm actually leaving that position next week. But other things outside of just my work, my everyday work, because I believe we are full beings, right? That are not just defined by the work that we do every day. I am a caretaker for my mom and dad. I'm a daughter, right? A sister, a friend. Have a beautiful community of friends in this town and back home. And I was born in Colombia, South America, in Bogota. And I was brought to the States when I was 3 and was raised in Raleigh, North Carolina, and moved to Asheville, North Carolina to be closer to some friends and to go to school. I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. Life happened and just couldn't, finish, and decided I wanted to do other things with my life, and went back to school when I went to Asheville. So I went to the local community college, got my GED, worked at the same time when I went to school, and, started my educational journey there. And, so love Louisville, love being in this part of the country. I love the Southeast. One of the things I love to say is that I'm a Southerner, right? And I still say, like, I say y'all, like, it's one of my favorite words. A lot. Like, it's really one of my favorite words. And so there's things about the Southern culture that I really love, while also embracing, right, my multiculturalism. My mom's United Statesman, or, she's white, European descent. My father's Colombian. And so, right, like, embracing those cultures, as well as, being in the South, right, being rooted here.
Yeah. So you briefly talked about just kind of growing up in North Carolina by somebody who knows you, right, and knows that you're driven and you're really passionate about really making sure that Latino students, have access to all the resources and things that they need. Being that voice is important to you. Like, how did was that something that you were passionate about early on in life, or is that like what motivated you to really take on this thing as like your baby and like, I want to advocate for and do this work? Like, when did that happen for you?
Yeah, for students, I kind of fell into it. I mentioned I went to the community college. I went to Asheville Buncombe Technical Community College, AP Tech in Asheville. And after I graduated, started working in the Latino community in different capacities. But one of the jobs was working in a library system where we worked in 5 counties and drove a bus into 5 different counties in rural western North Carolina, delivering books and taking library services, right, into communities. So like Walmart parking lots, trailer parks, like neighborhoods. And through that, I just really got connected to the families, to the young, to young kids and their mothers, were a lot of the folks that would frequent it was called the Bibliobus Project. And so through that, in going to school and going to get a bachelor's degree, at the time, I think I was a little bit of an older student, going to, like 23, 24, finishing up my undergrad. And I studied Latin American studies and learning about, the Latino communities, mostly in Latin America, though, and what they experienced historically in Latin America, and started making me think a lot, like, why do folks migrate? What's happening in Latin American countries to, bring folks to the South? Why are the numbers growing as big as they are? And so I just happened to see a position, and I traveled actually back to Colombia at the age of 20 and spent some time there. And in that trip, I did connect a lot. And I wasn't doing a whole lot of advocacy, just mostly learning and being with family, right? And just traveling and enjoying life, right? And enjoying Colombia as a country and learning about the customs and cultures and traditions and values. And so, and I think that plus having worked in the community, when a position opened at a university that was focused on transfer students from the community college I went to this other college called Western Carolina University, I was like, ooh, yeah, I was passionate at the time, not so much about Latino students' access, right, but more about transfer students' access. More about like how do you go from a 2-year degree to a 4-year degree seamlessly with like in 4 years and get it done, you know, and into all kinds of different majors. So I spent about 4 years working as an advisor, helping students in that transition. But I was a employee of Western Carolina University and based on the community college campus. So real similar to like Ultra.
Okay.
Real similar to Ultra, but it had never it was the first time that we were doing a project like that for the university. And so there was this like regionality, right, where it was a lot of travel, about 2 hours, kind of a lot of work in between 2 counties where our students were coming from into Western Carolina University. A lot of majors like engineering, but electrical engineering and more of the sort of technical engineering degrees, construction management, nursing, and education. So through that job, I just got real interested in like students and like how they succeed and like what makes them succeed. All ages, all races, all backgrounds. And so, and then I went through a program actually called Mastermind with a wonderful woman named Desiree Attaway. And I got to connect with women from across the country. It was a 6-month, real in-depth kind of like, who are you and what are you doing and why do you choose your passion and how do you choose your passion and what's your body of work and how do you find it? And in that process, I said, you know, I want to work in higher ed, continue to work in higher ed throughout my career. I come in and out of it. It's just a pattern that I'm noticing now that I've done. This will be my second time out, and I'll go back in, of course. So I got into the Mastermind, and through that was like, you know, I'm gonna go back to higher ed. I love it. I miss the students because at the time I left higher ed and went to run a nonprofit, a human relations commission that focused on EEO and fair housing and different issues, civil rights issues that were, you know, boiling up in the city. And I said, you know, I want to go back to higher ed and I want to focus on Latino students. I want to get my PhD. I want to figure out somehow one day how to get a farm. I want to study more about herbs and herbal medicine. I want to read a lot. I want to write. And through that project, it was like, I think maybe less than a year later, I landed this job and was able to start. And when I first got here, it was like, man, this is my dream job. It really, and it really is. I think for a long time, my passwords on my computers were like, dream job, you know, like, this is it. Like, I've landed it, right? And I did. I've arrived.
And like, you can start working on your PhD and everything.
Well, and that took years later, right? It took years later, but like, I've arrived into not only a vibrant community, but a community that was ready. And there was an opportunity to come in and just really build stuff from the ground up and sort of cultivate. I like to use a lot of analogies around farming and, you know, land and gardening. It's a hobby of mine, but to start to cultivate the land here so that we could, you know, enrich it so that students can have a better experience, not just at the University of Louisville, right, but in Louisville in the city. And so I guess it kind of landed in my lap, if you will, but started more from this idea of being a transfer student.
I'm looking at, I firmly believe and definitely know that when we talk about people, what they're like called to do, like what their purpose work is, that all of these different things kind of come into play. And so for you, as you were telling your story, when you talked about you know, dropped out of high school, you got your GED, you went to community college. From there, you worked at the Western Carolina University. Then you did nonprofit work, right? Then you came to the University of Louisville. And so I'm seeing like you in all of these different phases or stages of your life kind of creating and building who you are today. And so I wanted you to speak to where you're going now. Okay. And what do you see for yourself now since you said you're leaving University of Louisville?
Yeah. So it's constantly in formation. I don't know that I've got it all figured out yet. Okay. And that's okay. There's this level of, I think, just surrendering to being okay to your calling. And sometimes, you know, life just happens and you have to, you know, start to align it up in such a way that you can actually fulfill your dreams, right? And so I think for me in this moment now, it's So I'm in a PhD program in the College of Education and College Student Personnel. I'm 1 year in. I've got 2 years left. So my focus will be to study full time so I can knock it out and get the PhD done and, move to Dr. Nunez,
Ready?
Yeah. And then I think I'm also really interested in, the research and all that's really important. And I want to delve into the things that I'm finding are fascinating. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm every day I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. Yeah. This is, really interesting stuff that I'm finding connection to, and a lot of it is Latina authors from across the country, a lot of them based in the Southwest, who are writing, around, from a feminist critical race lens, and a lot of them too, a lot of Chicanas and a lot of queer women authors. So that's really it's just really inspiring. Yeah. But the other thing I'm really interested in as well is learning about how, I think on a local level, but also statewide and nationally, we're handling and doing the work of helping to support Latino and African American students. What's happening in other places? What are we doing well? What's working, right? What could we bring back to the South? What could I bring back to the South from some of the things that I'm learning to help, implement, be that through, the K through 12 system or even in the higher education systems. So just really on a learning journey, I think is the way to put it. Deep learning journey.
It's exciting to be at that place. I know that, once you get your doctorate, you've got kind of these ideas of things that ultimately you want to work toward, some things that you'd like to see take place. Can you kind of talk about your dream? Like what is brewing in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Because you've sown a lot of seeds in the community, and your babies, Leo, and you've really poured into that. But I really see like you have an idea of what you ultimately would like to create, and like to happen. Like what would that be?
Well, and I think it's twofold. I think one is real spiritually based, and we can talk about that, and that gets real at least deep, and I'm still forming it, right? Okay. So sometimes it's a little scary to talk about it because it's
the surface,
right? So there's the spiritual lens, but I think there's also this lens of like, what are we doing and how, right? As we break down the institutions, right, that are really made for a certain kind of people to only participate in, right? So institutions that are based in white supremacy, institutions that are totally colonized. How are we working collectively as a community, because we can't inside of any one institution fix it, but we can collectively. So when you think about the idea of the LEO project, which is the Louisville Latino Education Outreach Project, and that work of 15 different agencies coming together to collaborate around removing barriers and increasing access to Latino student success, the like heartbeat of that group, right? It's all about just like collectively coming together so that we can understand who, what, where, when, how, and support one another. Yeah. Because as when I was a director of a nonprofit, I remember it's isolating, it's lonely. I'm like, why am I trying to pay for my own building, my own internet, my own paper, right? When we've got other organizations doing the same thing, doesn't it make sense for us to come together and support one another more collectively, financially? And it's not a competition, right? It's that we're all like the community ends up really much stronger in the end. So, I guess in the philanthropic world and in nonprofit world, they call that collective impact. And I think I like collective impact. Like the time that I've spent with it, the time that I've worked in it, I'm like, oh, this actually really works when it's done right. When it's done
to really help, to really support those who need that.
Yeah, right? And it requires
it's intentional.
It's really intentional, and not just like it takes like the leaders of the organizations to believe in it as well, and to like and for all that information to feed up, right? And so like you're writing a grant, for example, that might be able to bring in 3 large institutions to potentially create, I don't know, an office to support, whatever it might be. Yeah. It's much stronger when we do it together. But you have to have a backbone organization or a person, right, to help keep that that glue held together, and the communication and the meetings happening and all of that. And it's not just like an admin type of person, right? It's someone that can understand all the connectivities. And the like the inner workings of all the things, because it becomes political sometimes. You've got different personalities, and so you've got to be able to massage that and keep that heartbeat going,
and also keep things kind of progressing and moving,
right,
and not getting kind of stifled.
Exactly. And so for me, that's an act in itself of breaking down, all these barriers, like the patriarchy, white supremacy, like just being able to come together in that way.
Yeah.
So when it's like, all right, you're inside of an institution and you have 3 or 4 offices, may or may not work together. What are the things, the connectivity pieces that are going to actually bring us together and get them to flow in a real fluid manner and like organically without it being forced.
That's important.
That's
important.
And I think so. I think the work on a local level is so much like rooted in figuring out really how we can do this so that it's not, because you're going to tire out. I'm going to tire out. I'm actually pretty tired. I'm ready for a break. I'm ready.
You run out of resources.
Yeah. You run out of steam a little, right? Like it has to be something that's built the way that we vision the world, vision the work, right? It has to be something that's systemic. It can't just be one-off projects or programs, because we're never actually going to get to the root of solving all the things. So, and of course, we have to take a look at root causes to racism and access and all the barriers, right? And try to get at removing those, which is another set of heavy lifting. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. No, but
it's ongoing. It's a constant.
But I think to be a person, right, that walks in this world as someone who is a change agent for these types of things, it's it can be a little bit of a burden to carry, and I think to do it well, you have to be really strategic, and you have to have the right partners and the right culture, the right visionaries and leaders helping to sort of back it. So that's sort of on a project wide, like the kinds of projects I want to and the kind of work. When it comes to like students and some of the research that I'm doing around students' experience in college or in the education system, one of the areas that I'm looking into, so I developed this Latino student success ecosystem. So the ecosystem for Latino student success. And it's a flower. And at the center of the flower is the student and the family, right? And then there's petals. One of the petals that I'm really focused on right now is healing in indigenous practices. And so and when you think about indigenous practices, like we're all come from indigenous backgrounds.
Yes.
So, the African, the European, and the Latin American, the Central American, the Caribbean, right? All these places have indigenous peoples and had indigenous peoples. And so in the academic setting, indigenous practices or healing practices can be translated into things like inclusive pedagogy. So like, instead of the expert in front of the room, we're actually going to teach in a style or in a way that's going to maybe have circle dialogues, or maybe have a type of there's just more like inclusive in the sense that we're learning by discussion and by dialogue, right? You find that sometimes in a lot of type of seminar type of classes, There's also storytelling and testimonials and oral histories. That's also a way, like as a storyteller and someone, I love telling stories and there's healing in it. Yeah,
it is.
It's giving life to the past while also, honoring, your steps, along the path. It's just beautiful. And so I think that through through the storytelling and the testimonials and the oral histories, and through students experiencing that in the classroom, so curricular and co-curricular experiences, not just things that you're going to get by going to a program,
right,
but that you're actually going to experience in the classroom. So looking at those healing and indigenous practices, and then, when you look at the LEO project, it's like community engagement. It's one of the petals as well. You have to have really deep ties to the community around Latino student success for your programs to be successful. And that has a lot to do with connectivity to the family, to the familial structure, to the values that Latinos care most about, and creating this sort of like culture of a college-going culture, but and one that isn't so like, oh, that's just for a certain kind of people. Like that's not for our people.
That's true. Yeah. It's more inclusive.
Yeah, and that and then that means, right, like if someone needs to show up and speak in any language, that they are going to actually be able to arrive at that space and have access to that language through the people that work there. Or connectivity to the students, right?
Yeah.
So the community engagement and the healing and indigenous practices are some of the things that I'm looking deeply at.
Yeah.
Through the doctoral work.
And so that the entire model is going to be used for your dissertation. Kind of just going to pick one.
I think I'm going to pick one.
Okay.
And I think part of it is because it's what they tell me, and I'm just learning this because I'm just in the beginning stages. But what I'm learning is that it's not your life work. This isn't a body of work I have to develop in a year. This is just one piece. It's one leaf of the plant that's, that's going to be really looked at, right? And that's going to hopefully make me a content expert on that topic. And that can allow me to then help other institutions of higher learning or public schools or teachers or counselors or small nonprofits or large nonprofits that are working in the education field to really develop out programs that are going to be, holistic and really beneficial.
Yeah.
Because why waste your money on something that's not actually going to make an impact?
Yeah.
Right. But there's big culture shifting that has to happen because it's not a 9 to 5. I'm in the office every day type of job. You're constantly
out in the community and doing the work.
Right.
But I think it's great that now that the way that you put it, where you're focusing on one content area, and you're really diving into that area so that you can be a content expert. Because when you think about the whole model, like that's a lot.
That's a lot
for us to try and encompass. And so, really diving into that one piece really helps to kind of narrow in the focus, and then use that. And not saying that after you get your PhD, you can't publish on and do research on the other areas.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
That's really good.
And I'll say this, one of the things I'm really excited about is spending time in the Southwest and in California to learn what's happening there and how things because regionally, I think that really what happens regionally matters. The Latino experience in New York and in Chicago they're different. And it's
so different.
Yeah, depending if you're in a rural area or if you're in an urban area. And so I think there's a lot to be said, and for me at least, to learn in those areas. So I'll be going to do an internship at UC Santa Barbara with an author named Shireen Mordaga, and this summer, and then next summer to just spend some time. She has a center for a teaching center for healing and indigenous practices, where they actually bring in artists and have guest speakers and do a lot of activities around both arts and activism and indigenous values. Wow. So that'll be really interesting to spend some time, like on a college campus. It's already a program that's developed.
That is cool. And that's exactly what you're looking for. That's awesome. So I didn't know that you wanted the farm. I think we briefly talked about the farm. I'm just going back to that because you're talking about cultivating and how like you were connecting that to the work that you do. So when did this passion for like you
farm
have a green
and land
thumb? Like when did you? And how does it connect to like what
I'm doing now? I'm still thinking. I still think I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, before I got into school, I was kind of like, I don't know about this school thing.
Really?
So let me like just intern or like apprentice, right? And so I took on apprenticeships on farms. I worked on a lily farm. I worked on a hot pepper farm. And sometimes, and I'd be paid, it'd be like, to go out and harvest the vegetables or whatever. I spent some time, because Asheville's a real eclectic town, real artistic. I spent some time with a copper welder, and with a potter. And so I think it was kind of like in between the GED and the going back to school. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Yeah. So I was waiting tables, and I would meet people waiting tables. And I remember once this woman Seal came in, and I was working at Ryan's Steakhouse, and it was my first waiting tables job. I was just kind of trying to make it work, live on my own. I was 18, high school dropout. It was, what was I gonna? There wasn't much I could do, but it was a great profession. I made a lot of money waiting tables and working in the restaurant industry, and I did that for about 10 years. So I was waiting tables, and this woman, Seal, came and sat down. I was like, this woman looks so interesting, and we just got to talking. Before you know it, she's like a Renaissance fair artist who travels the nation to Renaissance fairs making beautiful copper fountains. Lo and behold, I ended up working for her for like 3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
So you left Ryan's and went?
Oh no, I still kept Ryan's.
Okay.
Not because I had to keep, you got to keep a lot of things. No, I stayed at Ryan's. I had the little copper welding thing. I'd work on occasion at the farms. I just piecemeal stuff together. I've always been good at kind of just making it work, but using it as an opportunity to learn and say, maybe I could, do this as a profession. Yeah. And then I want to say about 10 years ago, I went to work with Farmer Bill. And Farmer Bill, I don't remember where I met Farmer Bill. We just hit it off. I met Farmer Bill somewhere. And we just hit it off. And he had a farm out in Hendersonville, and he grew everything. Potatoes, raspberries. He had pigs and chickens.
Wow.
He even had an old vine of Concord grapes. And I was like, Bill, what are we going to do with the grapes? Bill was like, just, the birds eat them or whatever. And I'm like, that's Concord grapes. Concord grapes are my favorite. It's my favorite jelly. It's my favorite juice. Yeah. I love Concord grapes. So I said, we got to do something with the Concord grapes. So I went and I harvested all the Concord grapes. And then I made jellies later that afternoon. Yeah. Not wine, you said?
I was going to say, did you make some
wine?
Make
some wine. I wish I learned. I've always wanted to learn how to make mead. Mead is a wine from honeybees. So, anyway, I just got into it. It was kind of like a hobby, but then would just find, because Asheville had a lot of farms, and it was just a place where I could get access to, learning stuff like that. And so I've got my little garden out back, and, my goal is I don't need a lot of land, but I want to do a flower farm. And how does that connect? Well, the model of the ecosystem is a flower. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe part of that is inspired. I was talking to a mentor recently, and he was like, and a friend, Tony Payton, he said, now your flower, does it have stems, and is it rooted? And if it does, like, what's the stem, and what is it rooted into? And I was like, man, you've blown my mind. Right. Like, this is great, something to think about. Yeah. And so, and I don't know yet what it is, but I think that, that connectivity back to the land, back to the earth, back to beauty, just the beauty of like what your eyes can see that looks beautiful. Yeah, is it's maybe that's the part of the self-care. Maybe that's part of the this actually feeds my soul, and maybe can make me some money too. And I really like it, Yeah. So I think it's both hobby and I think long-term planning. Like, what am I going to be able to do in my 60s and 70s? That's gonna, because you can't work. I mean, you can work forever, but there comes a time where that we're working now. I can't do this forever, So I think it's more of a plan of, I think, being able to write and speak and teach and farm is more of a...
Which, when you say that, it makes me think of especially when you're talking about what you're rooted in, and using a success model. So it's like how you define success is being able to do and to give in that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you kind of define success, is like being able to do some of this and that. And you're creating a success model. So like, what is that rooted in? Being able to purely do what you love and experience what you want.
And how does it replenish you? I think that's where we, it's like to use the gardening analogy or the, the ecosystem analogy, like how is it then replenishing you?
Yeah.
And how does it restore?
Maybe
cyclically, regularly, like not just like for the moment, but like daily, lifelong.
Yeah.
Constantly restoring you, because this, go, do, run. It's just not.
It's not.
You can't do it forever.
No, that is. I think also when you said, we could talk about this all day, but just like when we connect with one another, that's kind of how we get replenished.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because there are days when I need, and there are days when you need, right? And we fuel each other. So you're creating like a garden, right? Of people, of different people that are fueling one another.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's the life cycle of it all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So, yeah.
I don't know if someone said this to me or if it's just, and I remember thinking this a lot when I left my last position at the Human Relations Commission in North Carolina, was like, I might plant seeds of trees that I might not ever sit under. I may not ever actually eat the fruit. I may come back later and enjoy the shade of the tree, but I might not actually, I'm not planting it to sit under it, right? I'm planting it so that others can come just tomorrow, and run it and take it and fly with it and go get it, right?
That's good. That's really good.
Versus it just being like tied to like
immediate like gratification.
Well, right, or to your own gratification, or to your own ego, or to, I don't believe that we can do anything by ourselves. Like we have to have, teams of folks. You gotta, as much, an orchestra sounds. Well, I like solo artists. I do. I like solo artists too, but orchestras are really, you want to have.
Yeah. For a certain time, you got to have some other.
You got to have,
some other.
You got to have a band.
It's important.
Yeah.
So, we covered a lot. It was great.
Yeah.
Great conversation.
Yeah, I always love talking to you.
I always end this show with just a question, and I think we kind of talked about it, but. Everyone has like a defining moment in their life that they said, like, this is something that is calling me. This is something that I have to actually make a change and do. Like, I got to give up something. I've got to leave. I've got to transition on. So for you, when was that like moment when you were like, look, I've got to make this step? When did you know that there was more?
I think there's been a lot of moments.
There's a lot of moments. Okay, how about the recent?
Oh, I was thinking about this today. I think when I moved to Louisville. So the like move of like, I was described Asheville as this like pounding heart, like that just had lots of blood running through it. It was real rich blood, just a beautiful community. It was just beautiful. I loved my life there. And, but I needed more. I wanted to experience more and have access to more and be around other folk, different types of folks. And I got that coming to Louisville. So, but it burst my bubble a little bit. It was like I was real comfortable in what I had for 20 something years living there. And so coming here was like, whoa, okay, brand new place, brand new people, brand new job. And so there was a lot of grief, but also growth, right? Grief and growth worked simultaneously at that time of my life,
And so doing an internship out of Louisville is going to be definitely life-changing, I think. You're going to Kentucky, California.
Always wanted to live in California, too. I'm not moving there because I don't
know.
I'm not moving there. But yeah, to be able to spend 2-3 weeks in the summer.
Yeah.
Paradise.
That is going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to visit.
Yeah, come. Come. Yeah. So
awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your heart. and some of the things that you're getting ready to work on. I'm excited because I know that so many great things are going to come from your work.
Thank you.
I'm inspired by it every time I speak to you, and constantly thinking, okay, I need to go work on my PhD, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming through. I really appreciate the love. I just pray that you transition on this journey and that incredible things come your way through this step.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you guys enjoyed our interview. And make sure, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share this video, and leave a comment below if you liked what you heard. And so until next time, be blessed.
Adios.